She wasn't on the run sheet, she wasn't on the poster. But in 90 chaotic seconds, the AEW women's division was flipped upside down. Refs on the mat, cameras shaking, and the last name LeBrock trending worldwide. This is exactly how it happened, and why nobody can hit rewind on what came next. Hey wrestling world, welcome back to the channel that never skips the spot where the ropes meet the turnbuckles. Seriously, we're obsessed with the nitty-gritty, the moments that make you gasp, rewind, and then rewatch 5 more times. If you're new here, consider this your backstage pass to the moments that truly break the internet, not just mildly inconvenience it. And tonight? Oh man, tonight we're unpacking what might just be the wildest, most jaw-dropping 3 minutes of 2024. I'm talking about Arissa LeBrock's unannounced, utterly unhinged arrival, the instant, visceral mayhem that followed, and the backstage whispers that are still echoing louder than a Joey Janela superkick through an empty arena. You absolutely have to stick around to the very end, because I've got the unfiltered, no-holds-barred locker room quotes that no one else is brave enough to run with. Plus, we're dropping a poll that lets you decide who steps up to try and tame this human cyclone next. Get ready, because this isn't just a story. It's a full-blown wrestling earthquake. When the name LeBrock hit the airwaves, most fans, let's be real, immediately thought stunt casting. Another celebrity kid trying to cash in on a famous surname, right? But here's the kicker. LeBrock's bloodline is only half the story, and honestly, it's probably the less interesting half once you dig a little. Yes, her dad is the one and only Steven Seagal, you know, the ponytailed 7-Dan Aikido action hero who once told us he was above the law. And her mom? That would be Kelly LeBrock, the iconic 80s bombshell who famously told us, with a wink and a smile, not to hate her because she's beautiful. That's quite the genetic lottery ticket, isn't it? Arissa, however, didn't grow up in some gilded cage. She was raised in that wonderfully weird, slightly unsettling limelight stew of movie sets, red carpets, and crucially, dojo mats. While other celebrity kids were probably navigating paparazzi and exclusive after-parties, Arissa was logging serious hours on the tatami, the traditional Japanese martial arts mat, far more than she ever did on a velvet rope. This wasn't some casual hobby either. By 16, she wasn't just dabbling. She was a legitimate blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, training under the legendary Regan Machado. For those not in the know, Machado is royalty in the BJJ world, a master who's shaped countless champions. Imagine the discipline, the grind, the sheer technical prowess you need to achieve that at such a young age. But Arissa didn't stop there. By 21, she'd added brutal, grueling catch wrestling sessions with Eric Paulson to her repertoire. Paulson, a pioneer in MMA and a master of submission grappling, teaches a style that's less about points and more about pure, unadulterated control and submission. It's gritty, it's painful, and it's effective. And just for good measure, she was also taking weekly roles at the Inosanto Academy, a place revered for its diverse martial arts instruction, including Jeet Kune Do and Muay Thai. So what's the translation for us mere mortals? Simple. She doesn't just play tough on screen or for clicks. This woman files her taxes in the hurt business. She understands leverage, pain compliance, and how to make another human being tap out, or failing that, pass out. This isn't an act, it's a way of life. Then 2019 rolls around, and the whispers start. Abi, always on the hunt for crossover appeal, flies her in for a hush-hush tryout at their vaunted performance center in Orlando. Triple H, ever the shrewd talent evaluator, reportedly loves the stealth celebrity with real submissions vibe. It's a compelling package, a famous name, legitimate combat sports background, and an undeniable aura. But as often happens in the labyrinthine world of WWE, creative can't quite find a spot for her. Maybe it was her raw, unpolished edge, or perhaps they couldn't figure out how to package her unique skill set into their more theatrical presentation. Whatever the reason, rather than sit in Orlando purgatory, waiting for a storyline that might never materialize, Arissa bounced. She packed her bags, headed south to Texas, and found herself begging Dustin Rhodes, yes, that Dustin Rhodes, the natural, the Goldust, to teach her the intricate, often brutal, dance of professional wrestling. Dustin's academy is old school, pure and simple. It's not about flashy lights or pre-rehearsed promos. It's about grit, sweat, and learning the fundamentals from the ground up. You run stairs until your lungs burn. You learn to blade potatoes, a classic if slightly arcane, wrestling term for safely cutting potatoes to practice blading or self-inflicting a small cut. Though I'm sure Dustin's lessons were far more about the art of selling pain than actual blood. And you learn to call spots in your sleep. This isn't just physical training. It's mental conditioning, instilling the instincts of a pro wrestler. And it paid off. She wrestled her first legitimate pro match at a tiny student show in March 2023. It was a 6-minute clinic, a masterclass in controlled aggression, culminating in a rear-naked choke finish that left the crowd of 80 absolutely losing its mind. Why? Because nobody, and I mean nobody, knew she could actually go like that. It wasn't just a win. It was a statement. Fast forward 14 months, and the landscape has changed. Tony Khan, the man behind AEW, is looking for a jolt, a spark, something to ignite his women's division. Ratings are steady, sure, but the buzz, that electric hum you get when something truly special is happening, is humming at more of a neighbor's fridge volume. He remembers the Seagal surname, probably from those WWE tryout whispers. He checks the tape, and what he sees isn't just a celebrity novelty act. He sees a 6-foot striker who can chain wrestle, who possesses legitimate submission skills, and who already has TMZ on speed dial. That combination, that potent blend of legitimate fighting prowess and undeniable star power, is exactly what he needs. One phone call later, Arisa is on a bus to Wichita. No contract announcement, no glossy photo shoot, no trademark AEW graphic package plastered across social media. Just quiet, calculated movement. That secrecy, that deliberate lack of fanfare, is about to detonate live on national television, and the wrestling world won't ever be the same. It was a Friday night, and Dynamite was closing cold. You know the vibe. The main event just wrapped. The crowd's a little tired, and everyone's ready to head home or hit the merch stand one last time. Jamie Hayter, one of AEW's toughest and most respected women's division competitors, was slated to face an unsigned local talent in what was essentially a tune-up match. A squash, a showcase for Hayter, nothing more, nothing less. Commentary was dutifully hyping the upcoming Owen Hart Cup bracket, trying to keep the energy up. But the hard cam was practically yawning, and you could see fans already making their way towards the exits. It was just a placeholder, a segment to fill the last few minutes of airtime. Then, the lights. Not the usual arena lights, not the standard red or blue. These were strobing purple, a color entirely out of place, never rehearsed, completely off script. A collective murmur rippled through the crowd. What was this? And out steps LeBrock. No grand entrance music, no dazzling Titantron video package, no pyro. Just her, in plain black tights, hair braided tightly, almost clinically, like she was about to step onto a grappling mat for a shoot fight, not a pro wrestling match. The silence that followed was so loud, so deafening, that you could practically hear a pin drop in the arena. Excalibur, usually a fountain of information, had to vamp on commentary, scrambling to make sense of what he was seeing. That's Arisa LeBrock, folks, and I'm told this match is officially sanctioned. His voice held a note of genuine surprise, a hint of unease. Even he, the walking encyclopedia of wrestling, was caught completely off guard. The bell rings, a sharp, jarring sound that cuts through the lingering tension. Hayter, ever the professional, extends a hand for the traditional show of respect. Arisa doesn't even acknowledge it. She refuses the handshake, her eyes locked on Hayter with an intensity that borders on predatory. She opens in a southpaw stance, a fighter's stance, not a wrestler's. And then, without warning, she throws a teep, a Muay Thai front kick that connects with Jamie Hayter's midsection with brutal force, folding Hayter backward like a cheap lawn chair. The air leaves Hayter's lungs in a visible gasp. This isn't a working kick. This is a legitimate, bone-jarring strike. Jamie, a veteran and a powerhouse, fires back instantly, her European uppercut snapping LeBrock's head back. But every exchange, every power move Hayter attempts, is met with a counter. An ankle pick here, a knee shield there, techniques straight out of a grappling tournament, forcing a reset, disrupting Hayter's rhythm, making her fight Arisa's fight. 3 minutes in, Arisa traps an arm, then hits a belly-to-back suplex. But it's not just any suplex. The bridge she holds is so tight, so powerful, that it looks like a 3 count in the arena, even though the referee only counts to 2. The crowd, which had been slowly stirring, fully wakes up now. "This is awesome," chants start to echo, but the cadence is nervous, laced with an underlying tension, not the usual celebratory roar. They know they're seeing something different, something potentially dangerous. Minute 5. This is the tipping point. Hayter ducks a roundhouse kick, seeing an opening, and connects with her signature Haterade knee, a devastating strike that usually puts opponents down for the count. She covers, hooks the leg, but Arisa kicks out at 2. Hayter, frustrated, drags Arisa up for a brainbuster, a move designed to spike opponents on their head. But Arisa slips out like water, her body moving with an almost unnatural fluidity. In one seamless motion, she snatches a standing rear naked choke. Her fingers interlock under Hayter's chin, a textbook application, and she locks in a body triangle with her legs, cutting off circulation and breathing. The referee, Paul Turner, immediately starts counting the choke as illegal in AEW, frantically waving his arms, yelling at Arisa to break the hold. But she doesn't. Her grip remains ironclad. Then, as if to prove a point, Arisa transitions seamlessly, while still holding the choke, into a back suplex. Jamie Hayter lands on her neck with a sickening thud. The impact is so severe, so clearly not a worked spot, that the ringside doctor is already springing to his feet, rushing towards the ring. The broadcast team, usually composed, is openly yelling, their voices filled with genuine alarm. "She's not letting go! She's not listening to the official!" The camera catches referee Paul Turner, his face a mask of concern, waving the dreaded X signal, the universal sign in wrestling for a legitimate injury. The match is officially ruled a no contest due to injury, but Arisa, she just keeps circling, her eyes scanning the fallen Hayter, like a shark waiting for chum. The bell rings again, signaling the end. But the chaos, my friends, has only just begun. The moment Jamie Hayter crumpled to the mat, doctors were already swarming, tending to her, their faces grim. And then the babyface locker room emptied. Not a slow trickle, but an absolute flood. Wrestlers, usually backstage, burst through the tunnel, concern and anger etched on their faces. Thunder Rosa, known for her fierce spirit and legitimate combat background, sprinted into the ring first, a blur of righteous indignation. She barely got 2 steps in before Arisa, still in her predatory stance, spun and delivered a devastating heel kick that connected flush, splitting Rosa's lip instantly. Rosa staggered back, stunned, blood already welling up. Refs, usually tasked with maintaining order, swarmed Arisa, grabbing at her wrists, trying to separate her from the injured Hayter and the stunned Rosa. But Arisa moved with an almost supernatural calm, using classic jiu-jitsu off-balancing techniques. Any hand that dared to touch her lapel instantly became a lever, twisting into a wrist lock, then an effortless hip toss. The referees, trained to break up brawls, were suddenly just toys in her hands, tossed aside with unsettling ease. Then security flooded the ramp. A wave of muscle, hired to protect, but clearly unprepared for this kind of unscripted, visceral violence. Arisa met them head-on. She hit a T-bone suplex on one burly guard, sending him flying across the ring like a ragdoll. Another dared to approach, and she met him with a stiff arm takedown, his head bouncing off the canvas. The director, panicking, cut to the hard cam only, trying to minimize the chaos, to create some semblance of control. But it was too late. The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath. Some kids started crying, genuinely scared by the raw aggression unfolding before them. And online, Twitter servers hiccuped, straining under the weight of 1.2 million tweets in 5 minutes. Tony Schiavone's headset, usually a source of calm updates, was feeding him frantic, desperate messages. "We need more bodies out there now." The panic was palpable, even through the screen. In the middle of this absolute mayhem, veteran official Rick Knox, a man who's seen it all, tried to body block her path to finally put an end to the rampage. Arisa, with chilling precision, snatched a Muay Thai plum, a brutal clinch technique that allows for devastating knee strikes. She yanked him downward, his head exposed, and delivered a knee to the sternum. It was legit contact, a sickening thud that echoed through the arena. Knox folded, clutching his chest, clearly in excruciating pain. He would be bruised for weeks, a stark reminder of the very real consequences of crossing Arissa LeBrock, AEW. In a desperate attempt to regain control, switched to a standby graphic. The familiar logo meant to cover up any unforeseen issues. But the feed, miraculously, or perhaps disastrously, stayed hot. The truck, in the heat of the moment, couldn't dump to break in time. So, for 90 uninterrupted seconds, live on national television, the world watched Arissa LeBrock unleash hell. In the arena, you could hear the production manager screaming, his voice cracking with desperation. "Cut the hard cam feed! For God's sake, cut it!" Still, it didn't happen. That unedited raw footage became the most paused, most shared GIF of the entire week, a testament to the shocking authenticity of the moment. Finally, a trio of heavy hitters, Pac, Moxley, and a swarm of producers, managed to cage her in the corner. They spoke to her in calm, measured voices, like hostage negotiators trying to de-escalate a volatile situation. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, she backed off, palms up, a gesture of surrender perhaps. But the look on her face? Pure, unadulterated defiance. No remorse, no apology, just an unsettling calm. The crowd, a mix of shock and outrage, booed so loud it drowned out the house mic trying to announce a stretcher spot for Jamie Hayter. The message was clear. A new, terrifying force had arrived. The dust settled, but the tremors lingered. Chris Jericho, ever the provocateur and a man who knows a thing or two about making an impact, summed it up perfectly to reporters afterwards. That wasn't a debut. That was a declaration. She just told the entire locker room the rules don't apply to her. And you know what? He wasn't wrong. That sentiment, that chilling disregard for established protocol, reverberated throughout the entire roster. Multiple sources, the kind who speak on condition of anonymity but whose words carry weight, confirmed that Tony Khan, AEW's visionary leader, watched the entire melee unfold on the gorilla monitor, that sacred, nerve center screen backstage, with the same wide, almost delighted grin he wore the night Sting first stepped foot in an AEW ring. Internally, within the company's upper echelons, the move, despite its chaotic nature, was seen as a necessary, even brilliant shot of adrenaline. The women's division, while talented, had been struggling to break through the noise, to capture that elusive mainstream attention. Arissa LeBrock in one night had smashed through that barrier. The proof? Merchandise numbers. An Arissa LeBrock blank t-shirt, a simple black tee with just her name, sold out in 48 hours. This despite zero marketing photo shoots, zero pre-promotion. The demand was organic, electric, and undeniable. Yet beneath the surface of soaring ratings and merchandise sales, there was genuine heat. Not just kayfabe heat, but real simmering resentment. Some women in the locker room felt that the unplanned, brutal attack on referees, particularly Rick Knox, crossed an unsaid, unspoken line. There's an understanding in professional wrestling. You work stiff, you make it look real, but you always protect each other and the officials. One high-placed talent, a veteran with years in the business, told me, her voice tight with anger. "We work stiff, but we protect each other." She went full Pride Rules out there. For those unfamiliar, Pride Rules refers to the old Japanese MMA promotion known for its brutal, often unrestrained fights where safety sometimes took a backseat to spectacle. It was a scathing indictment. On the other hand, a vocal contingent argued that the mayhem was exactly what the division needed. They saw it as a necessary shock to the system, a way to cut through the established order and force everyone to pay attention. And honestly, the numbers backed them up. Ratings for the following week's Dynamite popped a staggering 12%, the largest week-to-week growth the company had seen since CM Punk's earth-shattering return. It was a clear indication that controversy, especially when it involved a legitimate threat, sold. Of course, the immediate aftermath wasn't without its physical tolls. The medical updates were swift and sobering. Jamie Hayter suffered a mild concussion, thankfully cleared to return in 10 days, a testament to her toughness. Thunder Rosa, though bruised and shaken, came away with 8 stitches above her eye, but no fracture. The scariest news, however, involved Rick Knox. He underwent a precautionary CAT scan after that brutal knee to the sternum. Thankfully, the results came back negative, but he was seen limping noticeably for a fortnight, a stark, painful reminder that Arissa LeBrock wasn't playing games. This wasn't just a wrestling angle. It was a physical, emotional, and institutional shakeup. AEW, ever agile in its booking, scrapped the planned, carefully curated Britt Baker sit-down interview. That kind of controlled narrative just wouldn't cut it anymore. Instead, they ran a chaotic, almost guerrilla-style mixed-zone scrum on YouTube. It was raw, unpolished, and perfectly suited to the new, unpredictable landscape Arissa had created. Arissa herself showed up late, fashionably so, clad in a leather jacket, sunglasses indoors, a defiant smirk playing on her lips. The reporters, a mix of wrestling journalists and mainstream media, clamored for her attention, shouting questions when pressed on why she snapped. Why she unleashed such an unholy fury? Her answer was chillingly simple, delivered with an almost detached disdain. Control is an illusion. People tune in to see something real. If that ruffles your pretty division, maybe it isn't so pretty after all. It was a direct shot, a challenge to the entire women's roster, implying their carefully constructed personas and matches were somehow inauthentic. And when a brave reporter dared to ask if she planned on apologizing to the officials she'd brutalized, she just shrugged, a dismissive gesture that spoke volumes. "Ref shouldn't grab a fighter if he doesn't want to get fought," she deadpanned, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. That soundbite, that single audacious line, hit every sports talk show from Bristol to Sacramento, sparking furious debates and endless replays. It was pure, unadulterated heel gold, but it felt terrifyingly real. But she wasn't done. Over the weekend, she dropped a selfie promo on Instagram, a grainy, raw clip that instantly went viral. The setting? A dilapidated garage, rusty weights scattered around, a heavy bag duct-taped together with desperate-looking patches. The lighting was poor, the atmosphere gritty, and the sound was just the rhythmic thud of her strikes. In the background, almost like a ghostly cameo, you could just make out Steven Seagal, her dad, observing, counting strikes in Japanese, his stoic presence adding another layer of mystique to the whole affair. The caption? A simple yet profoundly provocative statement. Balance is for ballerinas. It was a declaration of intent, a rejection of grace and finesse in favor of raw power and aggression. That clip, that rough around the edges unfiltered glimpse into her world, racked up an astonishing 3.4 million views in 24 hours, eclipsing Dynamite's own slick, professionally produced highlight package. Suddenly, mainstream outlets couldn't ignore it anymore. This wasn't just wrestling news. It was a cultural phenomenon. ESPN, the behemoth of sports media, ran a scroll about her. TMZ, the celebrity gossip machine, had a live van parked outside her hotel, desperate for a soundbite. And Variety, the entertainment industry Bible, ran a headline that perfectly captured the zeitgeist. Seagal spawn shakes wrestling world. Arissa LeBrock wasn't just a wrestler anymore. She was a legitimate cross-cultural talking point, a force ripping through the fabric of sports and entertainment. And she was doing it entirely on her own, brutal terms. Here's where things get truly messy, and where the lines between kayfabe and reality blurred almost completely. Technically, Arissa LeBrock was 0-1-0 in AEW because her debut ended in a no contest. A technicality, sure, but in the rigid world of pro wrestling rankings, it's a black mark. Yet, in less than 10 minutes of actual airtime, she had assaulted not one, not two, but 3 top contenders, leaving a trail of legitimate injuries in her wake. The AEW rankings panel, usually a bastion of logic and statistics, faced an absolute nightmare. How do you quantify that? Do you list her as undefeated via some convoluted disqualification loophole, acknowledging her dominance even without a clean win? Or do you leave her off the rankings entirely until she secures a sanctioned victory, thereby ignoring the undeniable impact she'd already made? It was a no-win situation, a booking conundrum unlike anything they'd faced before. Eventually, an on-screen graphic debuted, listing her at an astonishing number 4 in the women's division. This predictably infuriated Hikaru Shida, a former champion, a respected veteran, and a woman who had earned every single one of her ranking points through hard-fought victories. Shida, who had just been bumped down to number 5 to accommodate LeBrock, took to Twitter, her frustration palpable. Stats matter. Wins matter. This isn't celebrity karaoke. It was a direct, pointed jab at the perceived preferential treatment given to the newcomer, highlighting the tension between traditional wrestling values and the allure of crossover appeal. The fan base naturally split into warring camps. One side cheered, "She's box office, rankings are fake anyway." They reveled in the chaos, the unpredictability, and the sheer excitement she brought. They saw the rankings as an arbitrary system easily manipulated for good television. The other side, the purists, argued vehemently, if you bend the bylaws for Hollywood, credibility dies. They feared that legitimizing LeBrock's unearned spot would undermine the integrity of the sport, devaluing the hard work of established talent. It was a classic wrestling debate, amplified by the raw nerve Arisa had struck. The bookers, sensing the seismic shift in interest, pivoted hard. The next Dynamite advertised a trios match that immediately sent shockwaves through the wrestling community. It would feature LeBrock, paired with the formidable Serena Deeb, who seemed to be taking on a mentor role. A fascinating dynamic given Deeb's own no-nonsense, technical style, and an unnamed third partner. Their opponents? None other than the trio of Shida, Hayter, and Rosa, the very women Arisa had brutalized. The stipulation was tantalizing. If Arisa's team won, she would earn an eliminator match for the prestigious TBS title. It was a clear path to championship gold, a direct reward for her destructive debut, and it felt incredibly high stakes. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Ticket sales for that show spiked an incredible 18% in the first hour alone. It was a clear sign that the fans, regardless of their opinions on the rankings, were desperate to see what would happen next. Critics argued the company was hot-shotting LeBrock, rushing her to the top too quickly, a common complaint when a promotion pushes someone rapidly without a long build-up. But defenders countered that the women's division finally felt must-see instead of merely obligatory. Arisa LeBrock had become the most compelling, most talked-about figure in AEW, and everyone, it seemed, wanted a front-row seat to her next act of rebellion. So, what's the pulse of the wrestling universe? We dug into some social sentiment analysis from Wrestling Analytics, and the numbers tell a fascinating story. 61% positive buzz, which, for something this controversial, is pretty wild. Fans are eating this up, thrilled by the unpredictability. But it's not all sunshine and suplexes. 22% of the conversation is concerned about safety. And honestly, who can blame them after seeing what happened to Knox and Hayter? This isn't a scripted drama where no one actually gets hurt. There's a real edge, a genuine worry that Arisa LeBrock might actually injure someone seriously. And then, my personal favorite, 17% of the buzz is just pure, unadulterated, meme-driven jokes about Seagal movies. Because, let's be real, the internet is gonna internet. The top Reddit thread on the subject perfectly encapsulated the chaotic energy. She's the living embodiment of that. Sir, this is a Wendy's meme, except she's suplexing the cashier. It's a brilliant analogy, capturing her complete disregard for norms and her tendency to turn any situation into a fight. Over on YouTube, the comments section is a wild west, but a clear trend emerges. Finally, someone feels dangerous. It's a sentiment that echoes the early rebellious days of CM Punk's rise, when fans felt he was a genuine voice of dissent, a legitimate threat to the status quo. Arisa has tapped into that same desire for authenticity and danger, creating a character that feels unscripted and genuinely menacing. And the numbers don't lie. Women's match search traffic on Google Trends jumped to an all-time high for AEW, a clear indicator of mainstream interest. This isn't just hardcore wrestling fans. This is casual viewers, curious onlookers, and even people who haven't watched wrestling in years, all drawn in by the sheer spectacle. The merchandise, too, has gone beyond just t-shirts. Replica sunglasses, just like the ones she wears indoors, are selling out faster than they can be stocked. And "balance is for ballerinas" isn't just a caption anymore. It's become a phone case slogan, a rallying cry for those who appreciate her aggressive philosophy. The AEW shop site, a place usually quite stable, crashed twice under the demand. And get this, that hadn't happened since the Young Bucks' infamous Too Sweet hoodie drop, a merchandise phenomenon in its own right. Arissa LeBrock isn't just selling wrestling. She's selling a lifestyle, an attitude, and a healthy dose of chaos. Before we dive headfirst into the wildest, most outlandish theories on where this whole Arissa LeBrock saga could possibly land, do me a solid, smash that like button if you were watching live, glued to your screen when the chaos erupted. Let me know you were there for that insane, unforgettable moment. And then, jump down into the comments. If you think Rick Knox, bless his heart, deserves a rematch, or at least a public apology, drop a "Justice for Knox." Or if you're like me, and you're absolutely riding this mayhem wave, screaming, "Let her cook," every time she appears, then let that be known. The best comments, the ones that really capture the spirit of this madness, are absolutely getting pinned next week. Don't miss out. All right, let's get into the fun part, the speculative stuff, the wild, unhinged world of fantasy booking. Because with Arissa LeBrock, the possibilities feel genuinely endless, right? Insider chatter currently leans heaviest on this one, but with a twist. The idea is for AEW to keep her undefeated, a wrecking ball plowing through the women's division all the way through her eliminator match. This would set up a monumental pay-per-view showdown with the reigning TBS champion, Julia Hart. Now, think about that visual. Julia Hart, with her spooky spider aura, her mystical mist, her almost cult leader vibe, against Arissa LeBrock's raw, unapologetic martial arts brutality. It's a clash of aesthetics, a battle of dark magic versus legitimate combat. Julia's mist, often used to disorient and incapacitate, against Arissa's devastating rear-naked choke. The storyline writes itself, doesn't it? It's the undefeated streak against the unholy supernatural presence. It's got money match written all over it, but here's the twist. The little bit of extra spice Khan reportedly wants to sprinkle in. Forget a traditional wrestling match. He's envisioning a survival horror cinematic match at All Out, filmed in an abandoned warehouse. Imagine the atmosphere, dimly lit, echoing corridors, the sounds of scuffling feet, and sudden, brutal attacks. It's a direct nod to Steven Seagal's gritty 90s action films, but blended with modern, brutal work-rate wrestling. Think Escape. From LA meets Stadium Stampede, but with a terrifying, almost slasher film edge. If done right, with the right cinematography and storytelling, it could shatter women's pay-per-view buy rate records. It would be a groundbreaking, genre-bending spectacle. The risk, of course, is that it could easily devolve into meme oblivion if it's overproduced or comes off as cheesy. But either way, the company has laser-focused on monetizing unpredictability, striking while the iron is nuclear hot. This one's a bit more nuanced, a slow burn. Imagine a desperate babyface, maybe someone like a Willow Nightingale, extending a genuine, heartfelt handshake, not as a challenge but as an olive branch, a plea for respect. And Arissa, for a fleeting moment, shows a flicker of humanity, a hint of respect for the purity of competition. She accepts the handshake, turning face even if just for a moment. But then, the betrayal. Serena Deeb, her supposed mentor, unable to handle sharing the spotlight, unable to stomach Arissa's newfound fleeting popularity, turns on her. Deeb, the professor, the technical wizard, could see Arissa's softening as a weakness, a betrayal of their shared philosophy of ruthless efficiency. This could ignite a deeply personal technical feud, showcasing Arissa's ability to sell, to be vulnerable, and to fight for something other than just chaos. It would be a fascinating character study, a chance to explore the layers beneath the brutality. Let's not kid ourselves. WWE is always watching. They smell the buzz, they see the ratings, they hear the chatter. What if they dangled the ultimate carrot? A surprise appearance in the Royal Rumble, a guaranteed star-making moment on one of wrestling's biggest stages. The threat of losing Arissa to their biggest rival would force AEW's hand. They'd have to lock her into a multi-year extension, and not just that, but perhaps an immediate, undeniable title win to truly cement her as their star and keep that momentum from bleeding away. It's a high-stakes game of chess, a very real possibility in the modern wrestling landscape, and one that could elevate Arissa LeBrock to an entirely different stratosphere of superstardom. Arissa's debut isn't just a wrestling story. It's a cultural phenomenon, landing squarely at the intersection of several powerful trends. First, you have the undeniable allure of the MMA crossover. Fans are increasingly sophisticated, demanding realism, and Arissa, with her legitimate background, delivers that in spades. Then there's the celebrity lineage, the inherent fascination with the children of famous parents, but twisted. And finally, it taps into the post-Kardashian reality culture, where authenticity, even when it's messy and uncomfortable, trumps manufactured perfection. She's simultaneously a potent critique of nepotism. Oh, she's only here because of her dad. And a resounding testament to earned toughness. For every fan decrying preferential treatment, suggesting she's just coasting on her name, there's another celebrating the end of what they call industry cosplay. That's the idea that some wrestlers are just playing a part, going through the motions, rather than embodying the spirit of a true fighter. Arissa, whether you love her or hate her, feels undeniably real. The women's division in professional wrestling has long fought for airtime, for respect, for parity with their male counterparts. For years, they've battled for longer matches, more compelling storylines, and a genuine spotlight. Now, thanks to Arissa's explosive arrival, it's not just getting airtime. It's main-eventing blogs, dominating mainstream news feeds, and becoming the hottest topic in sports entertainment. Why? Because chaos, raw, unfiltered, unpredictable chaos, is arguably the most bankable brand in 2024. It cuts through the noise, demands attention, and generates genuine emotion. The big question, the one that hangs heavy in the air, is whether she's a fad or truly foundational. Can she deliver safe, compelling matches week after week, month after month, without compromising her dangerous edge? Can she evolve beyond pure mayhem into a sustained, captivating performer? Veterans in the locker room are already whispering that the target on her back is dinner plate-sized. Every established star wants to test her, to see if she's truly as tough as she appears. And the up-and-comers? They're practically lining up, desperate for the rub, for the chance to be the one who finally humbles her, who proves that even Arissa LeBrock can be brought down to earth. This isn't just about winning or losing. It's about survival, respect, and carving out a legacy in a world she's already irrevocably changed. All right, you've made it this far, which means you're just as hooked on this wild ride as I am. So here's what you need to do. Subscribe to the channel, and more importantly, ring that notification bell. Seriously, you absolutely do not want to miss our next breakdown. The rumor mill is already churning like crazy. A former UFC champ is reportedly answering AEW's Open Challenge next week. And trust me, we've got exclusive, never-before-seen footage of the contract signing that confirms it. You heard it here first! And one more thing, head over to the community tab right now. I've dropped a poll, and your vote genuinely matters. Who do you think should face Arissa LeBrock at All Out? Your options are Mercedes Moné, the CEO, a legitimate dream match. Or perhaps Deonna Purrazzo, the virtuosa, a technical master who could truly test Arissa's grappling skills. Or, and this is where it gets interesting, a surprise entrant option. Cast your vote because you never know. Your pick just might make it to my next script, which apparently gets sent directly to Tony Khan's desk. He's watching, folks. He's always watching. In under 5 minutes of actual TV time, Arissa LeBrock didn't just make an entrance. She detonated a bomb. She turned a routine women's match into front-page news, re-energized a division that was hungry for the spotlight, and forced every single fan, every commentator, every wrestler, to fundamentally reevaluate what safe wrestling looks like. Was she a wrecking ball, indiscriminately destroying everything in her path? Or was she the wake-up call, the necessary jolt that AEW's women's division desperately needed to truly break through? One thing, my friends, is absolutely unequivocally certain. The AEW landscape now has seismic cracks running through its very foundation. And everybody else, every other competitor, every other storyline, has no choice but to navigate the aftershocks. This isn't just a moment. It's a movement. Thanks for riding through the chaos with me tonight. I'll see you in the comments, on Twitter, and right back here next week, when we sift through the rubble for the next moment that makes us all hit rewind again and again and again.